What up, baby bops? Purple Vardy here, man. YouTube's first influencer. Nardwuar and the Strokes. Two things that should mix so well together. I love Nardwuar. Human Serviette. Legendary. I love the Strokes. You know, garage rock revival. New York band. And it's insane that Nardwuar gets these interviews well. You know, these artists are still fresh in the game. But this interview, man, it might be Nardwuar's worst interview ever. You know, I've watched a lot of Nardwuar interviews. This was actually my first introduction to Nardwuar. I watched through it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, where did it all go wrong? I'm about to break this down. So the first thing I noticed is like Nardwuar is kind of insane. He went absolutely over the top. Nardwuar on this interview, the way he goes, good. It's kind of interesting take of Nardwuar. He's very caricature on it. I feel like sometimes he doesn't listen to the band because they don't seem to want to talk about the whole smell the glove thing, which is something that had to do with their first album, having, you know, the girl's ass on it, and with the glove being on there, you know, people were saying smell the glove, like the Spinal Tap reference. The band wasn't into it.
Smell the glove!
Actually, that's sort of the problem that we're having at the time. We're changing the plan.
Spinal Tap references, man. We're not interested in Spinal Tap.
You know, the Strokes wanted to clear up some of the magazine rumors, but Nardwuar, you know, he didn't follow suit. He mainly, a lot of his like details were based off of those interviews that, you know, the magazines had. Part one, man, there's 4 parts to this interview. Part one definitely is the most telling part, you know, and the band ends up telling Nardwuar, you know, that North America, you know, Canada and the US are going to get a different cover. Nardwuar's not having it. He wants this, he wants the sexy cover that already came out overseas, and he totally disses the Big Bang cover.
Actually, the album cover is going to be different in the U.S. and Canada, I believe.
Why don't we get the glove on the ass? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, Europe allows the glove on the ass. Why not in Canada there, Julian of the Strokes? Your album cover. And the cover you chose there, Nick. What the hell's going on with that cover? Looks like Zoso Zeppelin thing. What's that?
A lot of people have just the Big Bang cover. I think it's okay. It's not the worst cover in the world. It doesn't affect the music overall. Both albums are fantastic. In that first part of the interview, he ends up taking the Strokes to the bar, introduces the band, you know, hey man, you know, here's the Strokes, and you have one of the fans that's like, oh, I love you guys, you know, it's a girl. But then Nardwuar goes straight to this guy that just straight up hates on them for no reason, and then says Howard Stern is the way to go or something like that.
Fans!
I love you guys. You rock.
They suck, man. They suck. Are you kidding? Howard Stern's the only way to go.
It's just so silly that Nardwuar even gave this guy the time of day, but he does. And Julian, you know, I think that's also what messed up this interview is Julian was tired of doing interviews before the music came out. He even mentions in this part that, you know, this might be the last interview they do for a long time because they're tired of it, man. They're tired of all these rumors, and they're tired of getting that kind of reaction that the guy at the bar had.
Well, it's not that kind of reaction. I think that we're sort of going to change the way. Like, these are probably this is probably actually the last interview we're going to do in a long time.
And then Nick tries to, like, talk about what he thinks about Fame, but Nardwuar cuts him off. I notice that Nardwuar does a lot of cutting off of Nick and prefers Julian answering the questions. And I feel bad for Nick, because Nick, he's a great guitarist. He's awesome, part of the band. Felt like Nardwuar was only there to listen to Julian.
Search of fame at all. We're just like...
Excuse me, there's an element of make-believe.
So one thing that Nardwuar also says is, like, he says there's this element of make-believe that the band didn't go to Swiss schools or, you know, the modeling agency. He brings that stuff up to say there's an element of make-believe, but all that has come to be true. You know, the band did go... Well, Julian went to, you know, Swiss schools, and yeah, his dad is a modeling agent, you know. He had a huge deal with the modeling industry.
Excuse me, there's an element of make-believe in a band, isn't there, Nick? Swiss schools, elite modeling agency. There's an element of make-believe in a band. That's pretty cool. Meeting at Swiss schools, that's cool.
It's like realistic. It's not make-believe. It's not pretend. It's not fiction. It's like true. It's true to life.
You know, there was no element of make-believe in it. So Nardwuar's kind of, I don't know, man. He's not got his facts straight, which is very rare. Nardwuar usually is on point with his stuff. And then Nardwuar asks about, you know, the band's cheekbones. Like, that's like something that makes the band great, but it obviously irritates the hell out of Julian. Like, he doesn't want that kind of stuff. Those kind of questions going out there before the music is heard. And you can kind of hear Julian get upset in that part. It's kind of crazy.
Element element of make-believe. Now, Nick, good cheekbones. Are good cheekbones important in a band?
No, it's totally like secondary.
There's a part also that I like in part one of the interview where Nardwuar mentions the Skid Row. There's a Skid Row incident where the lead singer chucks a beer bottle at one of the fans, and Nick gets a nice jab at Nardwuar by saying, you know, I won't do that unless somebody asks me a stupid question. And it was a jab. It's totally on Nardwuar because just before that, you know, he asked about the cheekbones, and the band's tired of hearing about that.
Remember, Sebastian Bach chucked that beer bottle at a fan years ago, and the entire first album, the royalties went to the fan. Remember that, Nick?
Some killer footage, though, of him on stage, like chucking that fucking beer bottle at the person's face.
It looks great, but you guys don't want to end up in that VH1 special now, do you?
Never chuck a beer bottle at someone's face unless they ask me a stupid question.
And then part two, I think Julian starts it off very well. He says, you know, there's more important things in life than to be popular, because they have a PR person by him, and our work he's pointing out that guy. He says, yo, you know, your PR guy wants you to, you know, tell people when the album's coming out, but Julian's not having it. He says, you know, people who want to know will find out, which is very true.
Album release in CDA.
In Canada, album released.
Fuck that, man. There's more to life than fucking trying to be popular, and that's what we're trying to say, and that's what our fucking music says, so wait till it fucking comes out.
And then Julian gives us a little insight, too. A little bit after this, he talks about how Nardwuar was acting different before the interview. Like, Nardwuar was really chill, really cool before the interview, and now he's playing up this caricature of Nardwuar, and it's really interesting to see.
No, I was just laughing. You know, you're a funny guy, you're a nice guy. It's just funny that, like, we were talking so normally, and now it's like, I like it, it's cool.
And then the Strokes explain, you know, hey man, most of the stuff we say on magazines is sarcasm, you know, we're not too serious about it. And then Nardwuar says, no, I take everything so serious about you guys, and it kind of throws the band off because they're at like a weird stalemate where the band's like wants to be real with Nardwuar, and then Nardwar's like doing this other element where he's like, I'm taking all this other stuff serious rather than what's going on right in front of him.
Can I tell you something? All the quotes that we say are not actual things that we say. You know, I'm glad if this interview serves a purpose of like of explaining why, like, how silly all these articles are.
Though, like, all these like things that like we said in complete sarcasm that people like actually may or may not have taken seriously, like you're throwing back at us now. It's actually pretty funny. No one's ever done that before. But like all these things that you're talking about, like, meant purely sarcastically.
I'm taking them totally seriously, actually. Everything about the Strokes, I believe.
It's very weird. I don't know if Nardwar's like afraid of the Strokes, which he shouldn't be. I mean, he's been interviewing at this time for a while. He's much older than these guys, but I know if I interviewed the Strokes back then, even to this day, I'd probably be very nervous. They're cool dudes. I mean, they look cool, so I would be very nervous. Maybe that's what's going on with Nardwuar, but you know, it's really weird. It's this little back and forth they got going on. The Nardwuar presses, you know, the band about, you know, they met Morrissey. Well, they didn't even meet Morrissey, so Morrissey went to see him live, and then they actually met Noel Gallagher. Nardwuar was pissed because the Morrissey sighting is more rare than the Noel Gallagher thing, and the band seemed more excited about the Noel Gallagher thing. When they tried to explain, cut him off, he cut him off, and they were just trying to explain that they saw Noel Gallagher. They didn't even meet Morrissey, and it's just tit and tat, man. It's really weird, man.
Morrissey?
No.
Does that tell a bit about his influences at all, Nick?
We actually...
Does that tell a bit about his influence? Come on, answer that question. Does that tell a bit about his influences? He's more excited with Noel Gallagher than Morrissey. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
Let me finish, dude. The reason why I said it was cool because I didn't meet Morrissey.
Nardwuar asks, you know, what did Noel Gallagher tell you? And Noel Gallagher told him not to do drugs. And Nardwuar was like, oh, it's a little late for that. And, you know, he throws a joke in there, but it was really terrible. Like, it was just terrible because Nardwuar kept pushing him to talk and explain, you know, what Noel told him. And then when they actually told him what he said, Nardwuar wasn't really having it, like, oh, that's cool, like, roll with it kind of thing. He kind of presses him on, and it's really weird. It's just weird to see, man.
In the paper, I use you as toilet paper, and they're using you as toilet paper, and get back at them. Don't appear in the press like gay dad.
No, not really. It was more like, I like your music, thank you, and we were drinking.
Again, good advice. He said, don't get caught up in drugs. And I said, thanks, no.
That's true. He said I did drugs until I was 30, and then, like, you know, and then now I've stopped. I had my fun, and now it's different.
You have to wait for Noel Gallagher to tell you that? What about your parents?
Dude, you asked me what he fucking said, dude.
And then in part 3, he asked him, a cop story, because they had the song New York City Cops, and the band doesn't really want to share those stories because they want everybody, to be safe, to not have to do too much with that. It almost sounds like Nardwuar's trying to clickbait him into getting this sort of crazy article on the band, and the band's not having it. They don't really mention any crazy stories about cops or anything like that. Great song, though, New York City Cops. Hell of a song.
Some New York. Give me some New York cop stories. I want some cop stories.
I don't have any.
I don't want to like, you know what I mean? I don't want to like go back to New York and be like fucking harassed by cops, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then Nardwuar seems to back off a little bit. I think he finally gets it. I mean, this is after such a long time interviewing the band, and he asked them about meeting Lou Reed, and we get some good stories about, Nick meeting him and Julian having him sign something for the Strokes, and the band just really enjoys Lou Reed. I mean, how can you not? Lou Reed's GOAT, and we get a nice moment between them and Nardwuar.
That I met him at the movie theater, man. I never even told that to anybody.
It's all in the press, man. Julian, your story?
Oh, right, yeah, and it was over, and he was leaving with like his posse around him, and I don't know, I was with Nikolai, I think, or Albert, I can't remember, and we were just like, dude, man, you go up to him, like, say something, like, you know what to say. He looked so intimidating, that guy. Grabbed one of his books off the rack and said, like, can you please, like, I don't know, it's a longer story, it's not very interesting, but it was just basically like meeting a guy and having him sign a book, and it was really cool and weird, and it was funny. Actually, he signed it. I have it in my house now. It's a Lou Reed like lyric book signed to the Strokes. It's pretty cool.
And then this is something that's fucking crazy, man. So Nardwuar this whole time, he's dissed the new album cover, the Big Bang one, like twice in this interview already. And then Julian fucking reveals in part 3 that, hey man, you haven't even seen the cover. So this is what's freaking crazy, is that Nardwuar hasn't even seen the new cover, and he's already dissing it. He wants to smell the glove. He wants, the girl's ass cover. I mean, you could still get it imported, but the fact that Nardwuar has dissed it twice without even seeing the cover is what absolutely pisses me off. Like, dude, you haven't seen the cover and you're over here dissing it like crazy. It's very odd.
That should have been the album cover, not the Zoso thing there, Nick.
You haven't even seen that thing, dude. You haven't even seen it.
Okay, I was joking. Baboom!
The most odd thing about this whole interview is that Nardwuar never brought the band a gift. He never really, shocked the band with maybe back history knowledge of the band. And that's what Nardwuar does. That's what he's known to do. And like I said, this was the first interview that I saw of Nardwuar, and it almost made me not want to watch him at all. Later on, I think I saw the Pharrell one, and I was like, okay, Nardwuar's pretty cool. But yeah, man, we definitely leaned to part 2 where Nardwuar's giving this band, actual gifts like he does to other artists. I think they got off on the wrong foot. Something must have happened. I think Julian really wanted to be different in this interview. He wanted to be more real, while Nardwuar was taking everything from the magazines and all that to be true when Julian wanted to clear that. I think the band was tired. They wanted people to hear the music first, and I just thought Nardwuar was off his game on this one big time. I mean, he could have found more information about the band. He could have actually gave them gifts. He messed up. I think they needed a part 2, but yeah, this had to be the worst Nardwuar interview ever of all time, and it sucks because I like both of these things. I thought it was going to be beautiful. I thought it was going to be amazing, like the Mars Volta one, like the Pharrell Williams one, like his Tyler the Creator ones, which are great. But yeah, we need a part 2. We need, these guys to get together again. And I think the Strokes even took a shot at Nardwuar after this interview, with a music video where a character seemed to be just like Nardwuar, a radio DJ. And it's crazy. We need another part. Let me know what you think if you saw the interview, if you thought the same. Like and sub, don't do drugs.